Hello, and welcome to Getting to Know Your TI84 calculator and hopefully some shortcuts that will help you out on the SAT and ACT. If you're one of my students, I should have also sent you a little worksheet to print out so that you can kind of follow along, and also so that you can take notes on it so that a month or two from now, when you want to refresh on the shortcuts, you can just check your notes instead of having to rewatch this, kind of awkward and probably super boring little video. I would encourage you throughout this video to hit pause often and try to find the buttons on your own before we talk about them, and or hit pause afterwards and see if you can re-find them on your own. Just so you know, we got your little calculator over here. You can watch the cursor to see what buttons I'm pushing, and then this giant screen here is just like a blow up of this little screen so you can see it better. So first of all, let's say here you were doing some calculating. Yay, I'm calculating 32, enter. And then I wanted to go from calculating into graph. I just have to push this y equals button. If I already had some equation in there, I could just hit clear to clear it out. If I wanted to know what the graph of y equals x squared plus 3 looks like, I wouldn't put the y equals part because that's already part of my calculator. My life will be easier if I use this x button. So I push that, x squared plus 3. And then instead of hitting enter, I would hit this little gray graph button, and it'll just show me what the graph looks like. If I was testing out answer choices and realized, well, that's not the one I want to do a different graph, I can go back to y equals. I could just type it down here at the y2 part if I wanted to look at both graphs at the same time, or I could just have it be blinking on that plus sign and change it to a minus if that's what I wanted to see what the graph looks like. And then again, I just hit graph. It'll show me my new graph. If I wanted to zoom in or out, I use my zoom button, zoom. And let's say I wanted to zoom out. I'll just pick thing number 3, hit enter. If I wanted to immediately zoom out again, I could hit enter again. If I accidentally was like, whoops, I'm making my graph a hot mess, I want to go back to how it was before, I would just do zoom and then zoom standard. So thing number 6 would just get it back to how it normally looks. If I was using my graphing calculator to find the x-intercepts, or if perhaps I had an x squared minus 3 equals 0, and I was using my graphing calculator to solve for that. So if I wanted to find the x-intercepts, the first thing I would do realistically would be just look at this graph and see if I can kind of eyeball an estimate. Like, it looks like it's about -2-ish and +2-ish. And if there was only one answer choice remotely close to that, I would just pick that instead of actually using the graph, my graphing calculator to calculate it for me. However, if I did need to be a little precise, I could make the calculator calculate it for me. In little blue letters above the trace button, it says calc. So for calculate, anything in blue on this whole calculator, if it's in blue, it means push my little blue second button first. So second and then trace will get it to do calculations for me. If I'm trying to find my x-intercepts, another name for that is 0. So I just pick the second thing. It'll help me find my x-intercepts. I do have to find them one at a time. And the calculator will basically ask me which one I want to start with by saying pick something to the left of whatever you're trying to find. So if I'm trying to find this x-intercept that's pretty close to -2, I would need the blinking dot to be to the left of that. So I could just push this to the left button until it was blinking. Side note, I'm also tracing it right now, so it will show me an estimate as well. Like, it looks like it's pretty close to -1.7. But if I wanted to make it calculate precisely what it was, I am now to the left of it, so I can just pick that point. Really, anywhere to the left is fine. Hit enter, and then I can just go over to the right of it. Really, anything that's to the right of it, as long as it's not also to the right of the second one, it's fine. So I'm going to stop there, hit enter. The calculator takes a weird guess. Honestly, just ignore the weird guess and hit enter again, and it'll tell you precisely what the value of that 0 is. If I wanted to find the second one, I would just do the same thing again. Right? So I'm going to go to second, calculate, or maybe hit pause and see if you can find it on your own. picking the second thing. I need to make sure I'm to the left of this one if I'm trying to find the one that's about 2. But I want to make sure I'm not to the left of both of them. So just somewhere in between the two. So now I'm to the left of it. Great. Pick that. Honestly, I could just use this trace feature to get a pretty good estimate of it so I can see that it's, about 1.9-ish. That's cool. I'll make the calculator tell me exactly what it is. I'm now to the right of it. Really, anywhere to the right is fine. Hit enter. Takes a weird guess. I ignore the weird guess and hit enter again, and it tells me it's at 1.7-ish. But again, usually you can just estimate it based on looking at it and or just use that trace feature to get a pretty good sense of it. If I wanted to go back to calculate, or really anytime I'm in some screen that I don't want to be in, I want to quit out of it. It's in little blue letters, so I'll push the second mode to quit out of that. Now I'm back to the calculator screen. If I wanted to use exponents, so if I wanted 2 to the 5th, that plus 1, do 2. And then my exponent button is this guy. 5th. The thing to keep an eye out for is it will stay up there in the exponent. So if I wanted 2 to the 5th, that quantity plus 1, I do have to get out of the exponent by just pushing over to the right so that it drops back down. Plus 1. So just keep an eye on it to make sure you're actually entering the second part where you want it to be. For roots, I've got a square root button. Again, it's blue, so I would push my second x squared to get to the square root. If I wanted a root other than squared, so if I wanted cube root, I'd go to math. I can see the 4th thing is cube root, so I pick that. So if I wanted cube root of 8, there's my cube root of 8. If I wanted a root other than 2 or 3, I'd go to math. And I can pick this 5th thing, which lets me fill in for the x. It's currently filling in whatever the answer was to my previous problem. I don't want that. So I can just go over to where it is and delete it, delete that answer. And then if I wanted 5th root, I just fill in 5 there of 8. There's my 5th root of 8. This calculator doesn't have a specific giant pi button. So if you're looking for the pi button, it's over here by your exponent button. It's in little tiny blue. So we got to push the second button and then the caret to find the pi button. If I was typing something, and maybe it was more complicated than this, but let's say I had that typed in and I realized, whoops, I want it to be 171, not 17, but I don't want to start all over again. I want to insert a 1 before that plus sign. I would just go back until it's blinking where I want to insert it. And then this little ints for insert, it's in blue. So I do my second delete and it'll let me insert there. So if I wanted 171 instead of 17, that's how I get it. If instead it was oops, I hit the plus sign and I actually wanted it to be a minus, if I'm just going to replace something, just once it's blinking, if I'm just straight up replacing it, I can just blink it and change it. For my trig stuff, so I do have dedicated sine, cosine, tangent buttons. So if I wanted to know the sine of 30, so just sine 30. If your calculator gave you a number other than 0.5, you are probably in radian mode instead of degree mode. So you might need to be able to want to change from degree to radian and vice versa during the test. So you go to your mode. Third thing down is radian versus degree. This calculator is currently in degree because it's the one that's black. If I wanted to put it in radian mode, I would just have it blinking on radian, hit enter, and then just quit out of the screen. So second mode gets me to quit. I'm currently in radian mode. I didn't want to be in the radian mode. I want to be back in degree. So I would go to mode, third thing down. Oh, I did leave it in degree. Third thing down, make sure degree is blinking, and I'd pick that. Or quit out of it. I do have an absolute value feature on this calculator. It's not a designated button, so I go into math, and here's where all those roots were. If I push to the right button, I'm over at number. So the first thing is abs for absolute value. If I pick that, it will let me enter in absolute value stuff. The buttons we're using also work with graphing. So if I wanted to know the graph of y equals absolute value of x minus 2, I would go back to my graphing by going to my y equals button. If there was a graph in there I didn't want anymore, I could just hit clear. And then if I want my absolute value button, go to math, push over to get over to my number functions, absolute value. And if I wanted x minus 2, using this x minus, and then I would hit graph to see what that graph looks like. Yay. So there are like the basics of your TI84. Again, maybe just hit pause and see if you can remember where all those buttons are before you go on to the next video, but the next one's about some shortcuts.